Hi, I'm Bob Humphrey with another tip from Yamaha Outdoors, and today we're going to talk about feeding deer in the winter. One factor to keep in mind is when to feed. As fall turns to winter, the deer's digestive system changes. It adapts to their food, which in winter is largely coarse woody browse that's very difficult to digest. You want to start feeding before they make that transition, and I'll explain why in a minute. Okay, now deer have a very complex digestive system. Their stomach consists of 4 chambers, and within those chambers there are beneficial bacteria that help break down the coarse fibrous material that makes up most of their winter diet. That develops as fall turns to winter and their diet shifts. If you start too late and you give them the wrong kind of food, you can upset that balance in their digestive system, and given the wrong food at the wrong time, a deer could actually starve to death with a full stomach. So it's important that you give them the right food. Okay, a little bit of corn is not a bad thing. It gives them a little quick energy, but you want to also make sure that your mix has plenty of protein, probably between 15 and 20% protein. Some roughage in there too, because they need that cellulose, that fiber, to help digest and to help feed the bacteria that break the fiber down into a usable form that they can absorb and get some nutrition from. Now, as I mentioned, you want to start early. You want to continue through the winter. If you're going to start feeding, deer become dependent on that food source. You've got to keep it out there. You've got to put it out on a regular basis so when they keep coming back, they find it. Otherwise, they're left to feed on what's left in the environment, which in the winter isn't a whole lot. And you've got to continue feeding right through the winter until the grass starts to green up in the spring. Otherwise, again, you leave the deer looking for something to eat. By the end of winter, the gas tank is on empty. They've depleted all their fat stores, their energy stores, and they're really struggling. So the end of the winter is particularly important. Start early, feed through the winter, and continue right to the end of winter until green up. Where you place your feeders is another important fact. You don't want to put them near roads, because you put a feeder near the road, you attract deer to the area, and there's a higher probability that they're going to have a car-deer collision. You don't want to put your feeder too close to houses. There's disturbance from people. More importantly, there may be pets. People may have dogs that if they run loose, they could chase the deer. And even if they don't catch them, that's additional stress that the deer can't really afford to experience. They can't afford to burn up those valuable energy reserves this time of year. So keep it away from houses. Keep it away from roads. Get it out as far as you can. Maybe someplace where the only way to access it is by snowmobile, ATV, side by side. And then again, go out on a regular basis, maybe once a week, once every 3 or 4 days, depending on how much food they eat, how many deer there are, what their consumption rate is, so that you keep your feeder full through the winter. Here's a tip. If you're going to put out a feeder, you might want to consider putting some kind of fencing like this in the feeder to act as an antler trap. This is the time of year when bucks are shedding their antlers, and as they come up to feed, their antlers will rub against the fence, will knock into it, and if they're loose enough, they may drop right into the feeder, and next time you come to feed, there'll be a nice little surprise in there for you. Now here's another tip. If you're going to put a feeder out, you may as well put a camera on it. It's a great way to monitor your deer herd. You can look at the pictures and see which bucks are still alive, which ones made it through the hunting season and will likely be available this fall for harvest. You can look at the does, count the number of does, how many fawns did they have, see what kind of productivity they have, which ones might be a year older next year, and just get a general idea of the number of the deer in your area, how many you're feeding, how many you're supporting. That might help you keep track of how much food to put out, how often to put it out, and just a general idea of the health and variety and number of deer in your area. Oh, and it'll also tell you when the bucks shed their antlers, so you know when it's time to get out, walk around, and look for those sheds. Well, that about covers feeding deer in the winter, but just to recap, if you're going to feed, you need to start early. You need to feed right through the winter, and you need to continue until the end of winter, until the grass starts to green up. You need to feed the right kind of food. You can't just put corn out. You need to put a good mix, something with energy, like corn, something with protein, a pelletized mix, something with some roughage so that their system is already adapted to digesting. And get your feeder out away from houses, get it away from pets, get it away from roads, get it out in the woods, someplace where you have to ride a snowmobile, an ATV, a side-by-side to get to, so the deer aren't going to be disturbed and they're not going to be threatened by vehicles, pets, that sort of thing. That about covers it, so please tune in again soon and often with Yamaha Outdoors.